Hello and welcome to Views from the Sideline, episode 11. We are a week into March Madness. Joey and I give you a bracket update. MSU already out early on, to the dismay of Sammy. UMBC, the first 16 seed over Virginia. We talk about that. Chauncey Billups may be coming back to the Pistons. We give a little Pistons update. But mostly we're talking hoops. I'm Chris Pappas, your host. Along with me is my co-host, Joey Tysick.
How's everybody doing?
And with us today, a special guest is Malik Hill, host of Turnover Thursdays. Airs at 7 a.m. at 88.3 WXOU The Grizz. Malik, what's going on, man?
Man, I'm happy to be here. I love talking basketball. I get fired up about this stuff. It's March Madness. I'm ready to get started.
It's the perfect time of year.
Hey,
happy to have you, Malik.
You're in the right place.
Exactly,
Let me
exactly.
tell you.
It's all hoops here. Now I just want to jump right into it, Joe. I'm going to let you handle the bracket update here, but where we stand right now, I know the Views from the Sideline bracket, I think we attached it to the previous video.
Yeah, nobody needs to look at that
Yeah,
anymore.
don't worry. We didn't really post it. It's not there.
I think everybody's brackets are completely done at this point.
Yeah,
so.
to be fair, I think everybody's brackets
Fair
are
and yeah.
completely busted at this point.
Just to update the Views from the Sideline bracket, unfortunately picked Arizona to win it all, and that didn't come to fruition. We did pick Loyola to go to the Elite Eight.
Great
Shout
pick.
out Loyola.
Great pick.
They still got to win this weekend, but
It's
that will be
looking
our
good.
great. That will be our great pick of the.
If they get to
whole
the Elite
tournament.
Eight, I might just put that in the caption every single video from now on.
Mhm.
Moving on, Joey, hit the people with the bracket update for us.
Are we talking about Sweet 16?
Yeah.
All right, in the Sweet 16 now. Crazy enough, we have Kansas State versus Kentucky, Loyola Chicago, that's our team, and Nevada.
How about that Sweet 16 matchup?
I know.
Loyola, Chicago.
I
and
don't
Nevada.
know. I can't even imagine. Then we got Florida State and Gonzaga. Gonzaga, the runner-up from year previous. Then we got Michigan with an incredible game. We'll have to talk about that as well, of course. And then they're up against Texas A&M. And then we have Villanova and West Virginia. Texas Tech versus Purdue. Kansas versus Clemson. Syracuse versus Duke.
Shout out the Orange.
That's another
Unfortunately.
touchy topic around here. But that's your Sweet 16. We'll talk about that just in a little bit. I kind of want to go back, though, and go over the first two rounds.
Yeah.
All of the craziness that went on, obviously highlighted by the first ever 16 seed
That was crazy.
to upset a number
Ridiculous.
one
Yeah.
seed. And not only the upset, they blew them out.
It wasn't a game. It was
It was
insane.
Yeah.
I mean, they talked about it on SportsCenter after the ball game, and they just got humiliated. Virginia did. The
Yep.
Retrievers played good basketball. They played up tempo, beat them down when Virginia tried to play that full court press to try to get themselves back into the ball game. I believe Mora is his last name. I mean, he was just pushing the pace and got the Retrievers some good looks.
Well, and Lyles in that game was huge. He had 28
Yeah.
points.
He could barely miss.
It
I
seemed
don't know.
so. Virginia being the best defense in the country, quote unquote, he got to the basket every time, and down the stretch, I swear he never missed. He would go up and under, he'd go between people, and he would just throw the ball up in the air and would go in.
Oh yeah, they were completely off the game. It was from the start of the second half too.
Yeah.
You could completely.
And it
see
just seemed like, yeah, Virginia has really good lockdown defenders, like they move their feet well, but I didn't really see any rim protectors for that team. They're not that big overall down low, and it seemed like UMBC took a little bit of advantage. And obviously, once you start to get up 10 or 15, I'm sure Virginia started to sweat a little bit.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Like
you
the
could
whole
definitely
time, I'm
tell.
sure that they were rolling. They're like, okay, we're playing the Retrievers. They're yellow. Let's call
It's
them
the
the
Golden
Golden
Retrievers.
Retrievers. Like, you don't ever want to lose to that. So it was incredible to see, and I'm sure once they started going down and the clock started ticking down,
crowd started to get
I
behind them.
know they had to start getting nervous, and then they knew, and it was kind of just fell flat, and it was over.
Yeah.
And I think you touched on a good point there, Joey. When it comes to Virginia, they don't have very much rim protection, like you said, and they rely more so on their perimeter defense to stop guards from penetrating in the paint. And their guards were just not playing well defensively, couldn't handle Lyles, couldn't handle Mora, and that's really where the Retrievers got at them and kind of the game started to unravel a little bit.
Right.
Malik, did you see anything that kind of, everything kind of stood out
Yeah.
there with the Retrievers, but anything in particular?
I mean, by watching this game, I could see throughout the year, Virginia had one of the best seasons in their school's history, going 17-1 in the ACC, and they won by building leads and just playing great defense from beyond that. They've never been down like under 10 or 15 points.
Yeah.
When you saw in this game, when they got down that far, they had no game plan.
Yeah.
It was Kyle Guy, chuck threes. I mean,
yeah, that's
you
exactly
give
what
it
it
to a
was.
guy, okay, what do we do? Chuck a three.
I know
and then
it.
try to play defense. Like, they had no idea what to do once they got down. And when you're a team that's built like that, there's not much you can do in the tournament.
Yes,
honestly.
definitely. And I want to kind of go through the bracket as it stands right now in the Sweet 16, like Joey broke it down. And I want to kind of give our predictions, even though that might not mean much, especially with our Arizona pick. But we have someone in the studio, Malik. He knows more college basketball than both of us. I'll say it. I want to get his take on these games as well. Starting off in the South region, it's Kansas State versus Kentucky, like you said. I'm rolling with the Wildcats in this one. Malik, you got anything in particular that you're looking forward to in this basketball game?
Oh, I'm taking the Wildcats by at least 20 points.
They seem like they're riding a high right now, and
Yeah.
Calipari's got these guys playing really well.
Oh, yeah, Kansas State, they got a lucky draw.
Yes,
even
they
though
did.
UMBC was riding on an extreme high,
Yeah.
and they kept it close. But Kansas State, they just played within themselves and beat a 16 seed. Honestly, I think Kentucky's going to run them off the court in this one.
Yeah, you
Okay.
think
Kansas
so?
State does not have
So,
what it takes.
so you're going with the Kentucky Wildcats?
Yes, Kentucky.
Okay.
Yes.
Because they're both Wildcats.
You're
You're throwing me off. I'm just saying.
The Kentucky Wildcats will run off the Kansas State Wildcats.
Okay. I got you.
Joe, you got any zingers for this one, or you just
No,
gonna leave the people?
I think Kentucky should win this game. Kansas State has definitely surprised me, though. They looked good in their first game. UMBC, they didn't look as convincing. And I thought that with all the injuries that they've faced throughout the season, that they would have lost their first round game. And they proved me wrong. So you never know, I guess. It's hard to say in this kind of tournament.
Yeah, that is true that you really can't even predict it.
But
yeah.
Kentucky having Gabriel in the middle for them is pretty incredible. Like, watching him play was crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about him because I don't care about Kentucky, I'll be honest.
Whoa!
I'm not a Kentucky guy. I always root against them,
Come on.
even though I picked them in the final of one of my brackets. But
I mean, that doesn't say much. You have like 8 brackets, right?
2 that I'm serious about. So I think Kentucky is pretty versatile. They're always dangerous. They can always do something. They always have crazy amount of talent. Calipari is actually a good coach.
See, for me, I'm rocking with Kansas State in this one for the fact that, yeah, Calipari is a good coach, and they do have a kind of a down year talent-wise, and they've been inconsistent. And I think this is more of a toss-up game to me. I'm just rocking with Kansas State because this tournament's been unpredictable to start with, and you're going to have UMBC beat an overall number 1 seed. I'm just going to rock with Kansas State in this one. Moving on, we have the Views from the Sideline official team, Loyola Chicago, taking on Nevada. There's no way I'm not rocking with Loyola in
Shouts
this
out
one.
to Sister Jean.
Exactly, Sister
Good luck
Jean.
charm.
Shout out. Maybe you can come on the show next week. We'll get you in touch. But Joey, you rocking with Loyola, right? You got to.
Yeah, this is going to be my favorite game of the weekend. I can see it already. These teams both just play tough, and they never give up. Obviously, seen by Nevada's 22-point upset.
That was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Come back and beat Cincinnati in that game was incredible.
They're dead in the water too.
The 2 Martin twins,
Those guys are the real deal
Oh,
too.
yeah.
really good.
They were 2 5-star players coming out of high school.
And there's a great. Nobody talks about them heading into the tournament unless you're really into Nevada basketball. And then these guys are just showing out, and it's awesome to see. It really
Exactly.
is.
I will give a little shout out to Garrett because he did talk about the Martin twins
Yeah.
in last week's
Garrett
episode.
Kloje. Shout
So
out.
he knew about them. I don't know if he had that much faith in them because I know those 2 guys had a lot of faith in Cincinnati. But I don't know. Loyola Chicago I want to go with.
Stop it, Joey.
seeing-
Joey.
I'm going to
Joey.
go with Loyola Chicago. I'm going with
course
the
you are.
Ramblers. We're rambling on. But Nevada's scary, and Loyola Chicago has
Yeah.
won basically 2 buzzer beater games.
No, I'm definitely skeptical. I'm not gonna put it past the people here, but of course we're rocking with Sister Jean. Malik, what's your breakdown of this game? You rocking with Loyola? You rocking with the Martin twins in Nevada?
Man, that 22-point comeback.
That was crazy.
I want to take Nevada because of that and the Martin twins. And that the offensive explosion between them two can be crazy.
Yep.
But the March Madness wave that Loyola is riding right now, it reminds me of like when VCU went to the Final Four. I'm going to take Loyola just because of the March Madness. They're the Cinderella team.
Yeah, I was going to say, is Loyola this year's Cinderella team? I mean, you can definitely go in a lot of directions. You could even go Cinderella teams as high as 9 seeds. I mean, Florida State knocks out Xavier. I wasn't really that high on Xavier either as a 1 seed. But you could go down the line. Texas A&M's having a good year. I know they're a 7 seed, but Syracuse. I mean, Syracuse knocked down Michigan State. They're an 11. There's a lot of potential Cinderella stories there that we have to wait for them to unfold. Moving on, like I just talked about, in the West, we got Florida State versus Gonzaga. Joey, very low on Gonzaga heading into the tournament. I'm rocking with Gonzaga. Joey, are you rocking with those Seminoles?
I'm rocking with the Seminoles.
Of course you are.
I'm serious though.
Oh my gosh.
Gonzaga didn't look that good against Ohio State, I don't think. I think they looked a little bit vulnerable.
Ohio
Florida's
State's a solid basketball team.
Right.
You don't think they looked that good against Ohio State?
I really didn't. I mean,
they
it
looked
took
impressive to me.
That's what I thought.
It took them a while to get going, I think, for as poorly as Ohio State has played recently. And Florida State.
I mean, Ohio State has some good basketball players on that team.
And you don't think that Xavier has some good basketball players on their team? I know they're probably the weakest. They're the weakest 1 seed.
Yeah.
But J.P. McCurra, Trayvon Blewett, those are some solid players right there. And Florida State, they gave them some run. And Florida State looks long and athletic, and they run and they push the ball. And they're kind of surprising me. So I just want to go with them.
Of course you do, because you got to go against teams that are not picked by you in your bracket.
Hey, and Gonzaga, they always prove me wrong. Like I said it last week,
and they're going to do it again this week.
They'll make it to the Elite Eight.
Malik, you rocking with the Zags on this one, or what you got? What's your breakdown of this matchup?
He has a good point about the long, athletic players that Florida State has, but I have to go with Gonzaga. Zach Norvell and Rui Hachimura. Those two guys lit
Rui's
up Ohio
been a heck
State.
of a player.
I mean,
I think Norvell.
Them two are almost unstoppable when they get rolling.
Norvell was crazy in that game, and I think he is going to be the big factor in this Florida State game. Hachimura, I think he's just like the perennial hustle player. He's going to get what he gives.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be Norvell for sure. He's going to be the key to this game. So if Florida State can maybe shut him down a little bit, I think they got a chance.
Yep, definitely. And so I'm rocking with the Zags. Malik's rocking with the Zags. Joey being the odd man out, of course, because he's got to do it. Moving on, we got the game that a lot of people maybe did not expect to see late Saturday night. The Michigan Wolverines versus Texas A&M. The Wolverines pull out a crazy win against Houston that, honestly, they probably had no business winning that game. I thought they thoroughly got outplayed. Rob Gray for Houston was tremendous, making shot after shot after shot. And they kind of just got bailed out by a Jordan Poole triple late. Joey, I want to start with you here. What's your feeling of the Wolverines heading into the Sweet 16, especially since they maybe should not even be here right now?
They're in trouble. They have to figure this out because that's 2 straight games that Mo Wagner has not looked well at all. Duncan Robinson has looked spotty at times, as he has all season, of course. But they still have that potential. They're still a very good team, and I guess maybe you can attribute it to the delay from the Big Ten tournament to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that's kind of balanced.
I know. I'm just saying that a lot of people do that. I don't necessarily believe that either. I think you're a team, and you should be ready for that. Like basketball has those kind of schedule things all the time. I'm sure it plays a little bit into it.
I think maybe we saw that in the first game, that the first 5-6 minutes for them to kind of get going. I could see that.
Right.
But after that, it's just basketball.
Yeah. Now it's been 2 whole games that they haven't looked good at all. So that's kind of like the bright side, though, is that they have so much more potential to show.
Yeah.
That, you hope that you can see that Big Ten champion team come out, because if they don't, Texas A&M is looking really good right now, and they could run all over them.
Now, I know Texas A&M looks really good, but I think Houston's a better team, honestly.
No.
I think they are. Rob Gray is a player.
So the problem with Michigan versus Houston was they did exactly what they weren't supposed to do. Going into that Houston game, you locked down Rob Gray. They didn't do that. If you watched throughout that game, Xavier Simpson was lost. He would.
Well, I don't think they should have had Xavier guard him in the first place.
I think he's a great guard for Robert Gray.
It clearly did not show.
But there was a time where I vividly remember watching the game, and Simpson was getting down screened, and Rob Gray faked down and came back up before the screen even came, and Xavier just looked off to the right, not even where the ball was. The ball was center court, and he lost complete sight of Rob Gray. Gray goes around, hits a three. That is poor defense. And I know you say that maybe Simpson shouldn't have been on him, but I think he's probably the best perimeter defender that they have. And that's the problem, is that's his only ability, in my opinion. Xavier Simpson is a poor offensive player. He can't shoot free throws. He's not the greatest
I wouldn't say he's
guards.
a poor offensive player, because he's really good around the basket getting his teammates
I think he's a
involved.
poor offensive player.
Of course you do.
But he's really good on the defensive end, and that's something that Michigan has strived to do this season. And I don't know if you can take somebody else off of for Xavier Simpson to replace him. I know you'd probably want Abdul Rahman
That's
or
what I was
something.
gonna say.
But then who does Simpson guard? There's nobody else out there for him to guard, so he kind of has to go to Gray.
You could shift Duncan down a spot. I know Duncan's not the greatest defensive player.
The problem, there's just
he
the
has at
problem
least
that I
some
had
size.
was Simpson's IQ seemed to disappear at times, which was
Maybe
really frustrating, because that's like I said, that's more of his main goal, is to guard the best guard that they have.
And I mean, maybe the pressure was getting to him a little bit. You never know. Pressure at the moment. Malik, I want to bring you in on this, man. What's your opinion of the Wolverines right now heading into the Sweet 16? Are you with Joey, thinking they have problems? Because I'm riding the Michigan wave. Joey was the Michigan bandwagon heading into this tournament. I'm going to ride that bandwagon.
I've been patiently waiting.
Let's hear it. Let's go.
To say, okay, so first off, I have to say I'm a Michigan fan, but I'm not going to be biased in this. I'm terrified of what Texas A&M is bringing, because they're not playing. Michigan isn't playing good offensively. I have to defend Duncan Robinson.
Thank you.
And Xavier Simpson.
Thank you.
There's no defending Xavier Simpson. Trust
In
me.
the first half of the season, Duncan Robinson was spotty, but he's been
come
lights
on.
out
Yes,
since that.
He's come on.
I did not like Xavier Simpson at all at the start of the season. I didn't want him to play at all.
I don't either.
He's proved me wrong completely throughout the rest of the season.
I don't think he's completely proved me wrong. I think
Well,
he has a place.
He was the best point guard in that Big Ten tournament.
I think he
and
has a
it
place.
showed.
No, Carson Edwards?
He's talking about in the tournament, like the play
In the
in
Big-
the,
I mean,
in
in
the
the Big
actual
Ten
tournament.
tournament.
He's not saying in the Big Ten in general. He's
Xavier
saying in the actual tournament play, Xavier was the best
on
point
defense, locked down everybody in front of him, and
Basketball's
on
a
offense.
two-end sport, Joe.
He
It's
worked
not just offense.
No, I
worked
understand
every
that.
single defense he played against in that Big Ten tournament
Defense.
and the second half of the season.
Defense. I think
He
he's
knows-
a one-way player.
He knows how to score around the basket.
He's
not a good free throw shooter.
He's a one-way player.
I think
But
you'll
that-
give him enough
But see,
credit.
okay, so the
offensively.
problem is, I've said it many times, at the end of games, especially these big tournament games, if this is a close game and you have a guard, the only guy that you can have dribble up the floor, besides, I think they should give it to Rockman at the end of the game.
Well, that's
I'm not
what I
going
was
to take
gonna
that
say.
away.
He's there. Yeah.
But if they have Simpson in the game, he shouldn't even touch the ball at the end of games, because he can't shoot free throws. And that is a
He's not-
liability for your guards when you want your guards to be your better free throw shooters. And he's not. So you can't get anybody to take it up the floor.
First of all, I want to bring this up too. This has nothing. Well, it does have something to do with the game, but why does Xavier dribble the ball to his right hand side, totally contort his body to the right hand side when you're supposed to get squared up with the basket? It makes no sense, his free throw routine to me, especially with how poor he's shooting. It just bugs me.
It doesn't
just
make
bugs
sense
me.
at all.
I don't know.
That's why I think he's just a one-way player. But
Okay, but that's
Malik, you can finish. I'm
yeah, Malik, go for it. But
not going to take it
I'll,
away.
I'll give you the floor to finish off here.
Although Xavier Simpson is going back to the way he played earlier in the season, which is not good at all.
But
I agree about that.
He struggled. I think he struggled in the first few, but I mean, the Wolverines in general have struggled the first few games.
Yes, they have.
So, I mean, they were riding a high on the Big Ten tournament. You had that lull, like Joey said, in between a week, kind of that week break. But I think we're just going to start to see Michigan start to kind of get back into their momentum and kind of reach that Big Ten tourney level that they were playing at. And Xavier Simpson, my issue with Xavier Simpson is just the free throws. I think he's a good defensive player. Yeah, he got lost against Rob Gray, but Rob Gray was having a heck of a night.
Yeah.
It's the free throw issue. He's a good defensive player. He can get to the basket. He can create for others. Sometimes his passes are a little off as well, but
My biggest issue too or not issue, but the thing that I was excited for. So when Michigan played Montana, Charles Matthews was aggressive in that game. He looked good. He looked like the early on Charles Matthews of this season. We need more of that. He needs to be aggressive again. This last game, he didn't look as aggressive as the first game. He needs to step up, I think. I know Wagner obviously needs to step up. I think he will. But I think Charles Matthews needs to get back to being aggressive. And I think I get you on Duncan Robinson playing pretty well in this. But I think Chris will understand. I hold him to very high expectations.
Joey thought he was the next great thing coming to Michigan.
Not necessarily.
As a D3 player?
But
Williams College?
But his just when you see his freshman year being so strong and he kind of didn't really develop into anything more. And he can be aggressive off the dribble. So I think he needs to be a little bit more aggressive too.
I think it's more confidence for him off the dribble.
He's a senior. He should have plenty of confidence.
Okay, Joey, that has nothing to do with...
I'm just saying...
Just because, he's a senior, he should do this.
He's done it, and he's done it in games before, so he knows that he can do it. But I think he just can get a little bit more aggressive. I think Charles Matthews can get aggressive. Abdul Rahman, too, was a little passive in that last game against Houston.
He's the one that's really been off.
And I think that's what has affected Michigan more so than Mo Wagner being off.
Him and Wagner need to assert themselves early on in the game. And
Wagner just can't play defense properly, which is even more of a problem.
And he can't box out and get a rebound either. Yeah.
He can't stay out of foul.
And the issue, too, I mean, Joey brought up with Mo Wagner struggling. He was your leading scorer in that game. He had 12 points, and he was your leading scorer. That says all you need to know about Michigan's offense in that one. And then breaking down kind of the defense and, I mean, how well Rob Gray really played. He led Houston in every major statistical category for his team. He had 23 points, 10 rebounds, led his team with 8 defensive rebounds, and he had 3 assists. I mean, 3 assists is not that much, but I mean, he led his team in 3 major categories. And when you have Xavier Simpson guarding him, who's supposed to be your lockdown defender, and he goes off like that, it's really just going to kind of get you behind the 8 ball early on. Malik, what do you want to see from Michigan going into that Sweet 16 matchup for you to kind of get your confidence back up?
Okay, yeah. Even though they let Rob Gray kind of go off in that game, they still played good defense overall.
As a team, yeah.
And keeping them at 63 points because that's a really explosive offensive team.
It's a high caliber team.
And they were able to keep them down, and they held Montana to 47.
Yeah.
If they keep up the defense, and I don't expect them to go any lower offensively than they already have.
Yeah, they're already struggling.
I expect them to step their game up in this one, and it'll be close the entire way. I don't see a blowout.
Yeah.
Unless those big men for Texas A&M get going, then it could be a problem. Although the big man off the bench, his name is just losing me right now, for Michigan, 15 big men off the bench.
Oh, Teskey, yeah.
His defense has been saving
He's been
a
a
lot
very
of
solid defense.
John Teskey's defense is fantastic.
He's looked good from the free throw line. He's had a little bit of a mid-range game every once in a while. I think he's pretty good off the bench for Michigan.
He's kind of picking up the slack from Mo when it comes to on the glass.
Yeah.
Mo is very reluctant to kind of get his hands dirty, and Teskey's not.
Exactly.
So that's good to see. And if you're looking at the bracket too, let's say Michigan gets past Texas A&M. I mean, you're going against Florida State or Gonzaga, and I know Joey will say this is probably the tougher game between the two. So it's looking good for Michigan. I don't want to get too overhyped and kind of jinx them heading into the Sweet 16, but how have we not talked about the Jordan Poole buzzer beater yet? First of all, I thought John Beilein did some terrible coaching at the end of that game, taking a timeout in between free throws, because he could have, to me, before everything happened, he could have drawn up a play to get Muhammad maybe the ball at half court and then call another timeout and drop a play from half court. But when you take that timeout in between free throws, you really don't have that ability. And I thought that was a bad move, but it showed to be the right one because, I mean, Muhammad got the ball, drilled Jordan Poole with a nice pass. Jordan Poole just throws up that prayer, nothing but the bottom. I mean, hats off to the Wolverines. You really can't say much about it, but Joey, did you like the play design coming out of the timeout? Was that the right, I mean, of course it's the right call now because they made the shot in advance, but is that something what you would have liked to see? Or were you like maybe looking at something else in the late games scenario?
I like how you said maybe trying to get a different advance at the ball.
Yeah.
That always seems to help better. But I'm very glad, and I talk to my dad about this all the time. And what was the last game on Sunday?
The last game on Sunday.
Was it the UMBC?
There was
Kansas
like a
State?
close game.
Nevada wasn't
Man,
the
it's
last
kind of.
game.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
Hold on, I'm gonna find
I
out,
can't
guys.
either.
Hold on.
It
we
might
got
be
you.
the. Actually, it might not have even
It
been
was
the last.
Marshall, West Virginia was the last game on Sunday.
Oh, so it wasn't the last game. It was the. It had to have been the Nevada game. So
Probably
either way,
Nevada.
I can't remember. My biggest thing at the end of games is if you don't get a shot, that is a fail. Michigan did it right. They didn't go for. I hate when teams go for the baseball pass. It seems to almost never work unless you're Christian Leitner.
No, I remember. Yeah. No,
But-
I remember the game you're talking about now because you just kind of throw that ball down there and
Yeah,
you're like,
and
you have no
they
chance.
turned it over late.
Exactly.
Whatever team
Yeah.
it
It
was.
was like there was like
they
0.6
slipped
seconds left or
and
something.
weird. And that's the worst kind of way to do it. Michigan
At least
drew
get
up
a shot
a
up.
perfect play to be able to get a shot off, and it was a quality look. If you go back and look at it, he had a little bit of space, which is enough for a shooter. And sometimes in that minimal time is when you don't think, and that's when you
Yep.
shoot better.
Pure instinct.
Yeah.
If you
Just let it
don't
go.
shoot and you just go. So I think in that instance, it worked out really well for Michigan. They got a little bit of a drive. They got players to collapse on Abdur Rahman just a little bit to give Poole just that a little bit of space, and it worked out.
Yeah, Jordan Poole said they've worked on that play hundreds of times
Yeah.
this year. So it was something they knew exactly
and
what to do.
And that's something that, me being a high school basketball player, we used to do in practice all the time too. You play those kind of scenarios, and it's kind of a fun thing to do as a team. So you're always used to that, to just throwing up blast. I mean, as a kid in the driveway too, you're
Yeah.
always 5, 4,
Yeah, exactly.
3, 2, 1, and you throw it up. So that kind of thing has always been in your head, and you're always excited to give a chance to do it. So it's always cool to see that happen.
I think the real question is why wasn't there a man on the ball?
Yeah, you let Michigan
Wide open
advance
in
the
that
ball.
entire side of the court.
I mean, I understand it gives you that extra defender in the half court,
Yeah.
but if you make it so easy for them to get that pass off, it's really, especially because let's say Michigan had the situation where they could have called a timeout, then you're really struggling if you're forgive me, Houston,
Yeah.
to
Well,
play defense.
Too, and if you look at the Purdue game, they had at the end of that Purdue game, they had Harms on the basketball, and he's a 7-footer and he's huge and he takes up
Yeah.
so much space.
Yep.
He was guarding the ball, and the team that they were playing against had to go all the way up to right next to the basket, whereas Michigan got to throw it almost all the way to half court.
Exactly.
Exactly. And let me shout out to the big man Boban Marjanovic. But when the Pistons formed a wall, that's what they did. They had Boban on the ball, and you had Andre Drummond form a wall. I mean, just don't let that pass get off. Don't let it be easy. But yeah, it was interesting to say the least. The end of that game. And moving on in our East region, we got Villanova, West Virginia. I think Villanova is probably the clear-cut favorite as of right now, along with Duke. West Virginia, they're probably as far as I thought they would go. I think
They've played a lot better than I thought they would.
yeah,
honestly.
I didn't expect them to go this far. We'll see if they can give Villanova any kind of fight. I'm not sure if they can. I know Joey's low on West Virginia to start.
So am I, honestly.
Yeah. So
But I
they-
like the
they've
team,
surprised
but
me.
they always fail me.
yeah,
That's the problem.
They don't have enough playmakers.
they really don't. And then when you're playing against a team that has a lot of playmakers and has that senior leadership, I just think they're gonna get exploited.
Exactly.
Moving on, we got Texas Tech and Purdue. I think that's gonna be a really good game. I wonder if Haas is gonna play. I know there've been talk that he might.
I'm pretty sure he's
Yeah.
done. I'm
I
pretty
thought-
sure
I heard
he's
there
done.
was some talk that he might play. That it was up
Well,
to.
he was gonna play this last game,
Yeah.
and if you saw him in warmups,
Oh,
he could barely move his
lift his arm,
elbow.
yeah.
I think the elbow, especially on a shooting hand,
That was what's. If it was his
is-
left hand, I think. That's
yeah, you
different.
maybe could get a chance. But the problem is with basketball, you move your elbow so often with shooting and just getting up at a rebound. Anytime somebody's gonna go up, hit that rebound, and they hit you on the arm at all, and your elbow's gonna go in an opposite direction, it's gonna hurt every time. And
Yeah.
I don't know how much that they can suppress that.
I mean, maybe they could play him spot minutes if they really need to. I mean, dress him, play him spot minutes. Yeah, it'll be difficult, be painful, but I mean, at least gives you another option at the end of your bench. And then in the Midwest, we got Kansas and Clemson. I think Clemson's played really well, a lot better than I expected. But the Jayhawks maybe too much. They've gotten a lot of good guard play in this tournament and really all year long. Malik, what's your take on that Kansas Clemson game? You think anything crazy is gonna happen, or are you rocking with the Jayhawks?
Kansas and Clemson might be the best game of this week, honestly, because
Except for Loyola, we always gotta
Yeah.
rep Loyola.
Loyola, Nevada, I'm banking on it.
because what Clemson did to Auburn, I
Yeah.
mean,
They annihilated them.
what I can't believe how bad they beat Auburn.
I immediately started watching that game, and about 5 minutes in, I turned it off.
Oh yeah, it wasn't
I didn't need
worth
to
it.
watch the rest of the game.
But I have to go with Kansas right now because those guards, Sviatoslav, you have Malik Newman, you have Devontae Graham. Malik Newman.
Devontae Graham, I mean, I know he was a big-time player coming into college, but he's really surprised me how well he's
He didn't even have to score. He didn't even have to score last game, and he was effective.
Malik Newman had 30. I think he's averaging like 23 or 24 a game this tournament.
Seton Hall gave him a test, though. I mean, it was 83-79 Kansas final. Seton Hall's not a bad team, but for them to give Kansas some issues, you never know. Clemson might be able to.
You always got to watch out.
Could do it.
Kansas is another one of those teams that somehow seems to
choke.
Yeah, and better turn. And I have no other better word to say, but yeah, they seem to end up messing up. And
maybe that
no matter what,
I don't know.
every year they have the talent. I mean, you can say that about every team though that's fallen in this tournament. They always question the coach. I don't think it's the coach, but
to that point,
Kansas,
they also praise the coach if the team goes high and above what they expect.
I mean, yeah. So Kansas, they're one of those teams that's dangerous, but they find a way to hurt themselves. So I don't know. It should be good actually.
Yeah, and then moving on to our final Sweet 16 matchup. Before we get into that, it is Syracuse versus Duke. We were hoping it would be Michigan State versus Duke, but the Ben Carter Spartans,
especially our man Sammy Taramina.
Shout out Sammy. I mean, I know you wanted to pick them for the championship. A good thing we did not let. Actually, it doesn't matter anyways. But yeah, the Ben Carter Spartans did not pull out the win over the upset primed Syracuse Orange. Guys, I'm gonna give you the floor here. Did the Spartans kind of choke that one away or what?
Oh yeah, they gave that one up. Syracuse stole it. Tom Izzo did not bring out his best coaching for that game.
Exactly.
He made a lot of spotty decisions.
And I think they said it right too. I was listening to the Valenti show on 97.1 The Ticket. I mean, Izzo was either going to be the smartest guy in the room or the dumbest guy in the room with that move. And he clearly was not right. And it really showed. I mean, Ben Carter just wasn't the guy for the moment.
Oh, he wasn't.
And I don't know how you find your way to Ben Carter in that moment.
Yep. Whew. Talked about this one in length and multiple times. And one of the things that sticks out right away, though, Syracuse is always a hard matchup when they're in the tournament.
Yes,
no matter what.
They are.
And obviously you can see they had one of their worst talent pools that they've had in a long time come against this one of the best Michigan State teams we've seen.
I think it comes down to coaching.
Talent-wise.
Boeheim versus Izzo was the real matchup in this game.
Syracuse is always going to make it a tough matchup, no matter what, no matter who you play, no matter when they make the tournament. That's the hardest part. So I think people took for granted that Syracuse was an 11 seed. When you don't realize their play style, you don't know how they play.
It's totally different than what the Spartans have seen.
People that don't know basketball, at least in depth, don't realize how tough that can be on teams.
Yep.
And Michigan State got all out of rhythm. I definitely think, we just kind of said, oh, Bill Self, do we blame him if Kansas chokes? And I don't think so. But in this instance, I think Izzo has to take a little bit of the blame. The lineups were weird. Some of the way that they attacked was odd, or the lack thereof attacking.
Yeah, they kind of just kept moving the ball.
Even one of the biggest things that he had said at halftime was, we're playing pretty good. I feel like we're doing all right, but we need to push the tempo more. We're going to push the tempo in the second half, and I think you'll see that. Nobody saw that. That never came out. That never happened. And, Sammy brought up a good point. I talked to him in the studio here a couple days ago, or yesterday, actually, and he brought up the point of putting Miles Bridges in the middle of that offense
that would have
where
made the
Ben
most
Carter
sense.
was. Because, and I thought that was a good point because that makes Miles Bridges do exactly what he's done a lot this season. He's taken a lot more mid-range shots this year than last year, and he's improved in that spot. But it also allows him to drive and get dribble penetration.
Yep.
And if you have Miles Bridges, one of the top players in the country, in the middle of that offense, it's going to draw that zone in, and it's going to leave guys on the wings. Granted, I know that Michigan State struggled to shoot anyway, no matter what. They shot 37 threes, and did they make 10? Did they make?
They shot 21.6% from deep in that game.
Yeah, so they shot terribly. But it still would help a little bit, I think, and it would be a little bit more open shots than they had. And a lot of people, too, had brought up they had 29 offensive rebounds, which is incredible. But also, you have to think,
The zone defense allows more offensive rebounding.
Yeah.
right, you think you're going to get more three-point opportunities,
Long rebounds.
longer rebounds. It's not going to be those dinks off the rim
Yep.
that you can put back. So that's kind of a thing that
And
people
that's-
don't realize either.
Exactly, and that's why the zone defense, it relies on their guards maybe to crash the boards more so, and that always is going to prove to be a struggle.
Yeah, and I thought this was going to be a game where Cassius Winston was just going to
Yeah.
show his form, and he
Yeah.
never did. He started off pretty hot in this game. He hit a couple threes, got going. I was like, okay, Michigan State's in the driver's seat. And he kind of just disappeared. It kind of just left away, and Langford played terribly.
And I think they really kind of just combusted in the moment. You had a very Spartan-esque crowd. You're playing at Little Caesars Arena, and you can't take advantage of the 11 seed Syracuse Orange. I mean, you just kind of blew a great opportunity.
And Jaren Jackson, a top 5 pick. in
Jackson
this-
should have played more than he
he-
did.
Well, he had foul trouble, so that was
So-
part of the issue.
Well, yeah.
But he didn't, and even in his time that he played, I don't think he looked very good. My biggest thing is always, where did Nick Ward go? I don't know why he doesn't get play, why he hasn't gotten play down the stretch.
It's been kind of a steady decline through the start of the season to the end of the season.
And I
it
know,
has.
and
It really
some people
has.
give him a lot of discredit that he's not as good, but I think he's really good. And I think the biggest thing for me is, I talk about it all the time, I think he's one of those energy guys that you like to have on a
Yeah.
floor. He's kind of a,
he's like a Caleb Swanigan
He's-
for Purdue back
yeah,
when
he's
Caleb
not
was playing.
necessarily like a floor general, but he gives you that energy and that little bit of grit
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
And
Got
they
that
didn't,
Zebo-esque.
they didn't have that. Ben Carter, he's not going to bring anything energy-wise to the team. He looked all right when he first started in that game, and I was like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
But because you haven't seen him all season until
And
these
now
tournament
that's why I don't
games.
understand why this is when you start to bring out
And
Ben Carter.
me and my cousin had talked about, why didn't Michigan State try to go small ball maybe rather, and
Especially
do
to attack that zone, that
like
probably would
a
have been a lot
Jaren
better.
Jackson at the 5, Miles
Yeah.
Bridges at the 4.
Definitely.
Granted, I know that Michigan State also wants to take advantage of all the big men that they have on their team,
But having those perimeter guys lets you get out in transition more, like
Right.
Izzo said.
and you can push the pace. So it was an all-around weird game for the Spartans.
Not-
Very, very, very disappointing. It's rough because they're going to lose 2 of their best players. I mean, they'll bring back some talent.
Foster Lawyer's going. I mean, he just won Mr. Basketball for the state of Michigan, so
I think he'll get redshirted. I think he should at least.
I heard he's gonna be backup point guard next year. So we'll see. I mean, it's all
Yeah, I mean,
skeptical,
they'll have
but-
talent. They always do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
Joey, I agree with you that it was a weird game, but I think one thing that people aren't considering is, although Izzo gets a lot of blame for that game, I think the fact that everybody calls this the most talented team Izzo has ever had,
I agree
those
with Malik. in
those
this
top players
No, that's a
deserve
valid
a
point.
lot of blame because
Yeah,
This-
you can never blame just the coach. No,
Yeah.
I'm not. I wouldn't say that. But I think in most cases you blame just the players. I think this is a point where there actually was some coaching issues, and that the way that he did things was
Yeah, and I think
it wasn't super helpful for the players.
yeah, and Malik
So I
brings up
understand.
a great point. Miles Bridges. I mean, from the start of the year, this huge Sports Center article comes out,
Yeah.
kind of hyping him up, and everybody's talking about Bridges, how he's going to bring a championship back to East Lansing. No, he's not that player. He settles for mid-range jump shots. He doesn't play to his strengths when his athleticism.
saying that
Why
all
doesn't he
year.
attack the basket?
he's been chucking threes.
And
Izzo lets him shoot
he
7 or
doesn't-
8 threes in a game.
And he doesn't even shoot. He
And-
shoots more mid-range shots than
Yes.
threes, which is upsetting to me because that's the worst shot in basketball. Like, I understand if you're a 90% mid-range shooter, by all means, shoot the ball.
Yeah.
But it's either threes or layups in today's basketball. And Miles likes to settle for those mid-range jump shots that he is okay at. Yeah.
He's 6'8", 240 with a 40-inch vertical.
In college basketball. And now in the pros,
6'8", 240 with a 40-inch
you got to attack.
vertical.
I mean, you see it in instances, too. I mean, he had a couple big-time dunks,
Yeah.
and it's like, you think, okay, this would maybe click for Miles. Let's do this some more. Let's attack the basket, get some foul calls, because in college basketball, you can't touch the players as much. And to get any contact and go to the line, I mean, it's just going to help the Spartans in general.
Exactly.
And Jaren Jackson, too, I want to talk about. He gets a lot of hype because he's going to be such a high NBA he's an NBA prospect.
Right. He's still a work in
He's
progress.
still a work in progress, exactly. He's
I would
not that
like-
top-level college basketball player.
He's not going to do it, but I would like him to do what Miles Bridges did and come back another season.
Why? So he can get out in the round of 32 again?
I mean, I would just like to see him develop more, just as a player in general, not necessarily to make a run or anything.
Let the guy get his
But-
money.
I think.
No,
he's
yeah,
gone.
I think he's gone. I don't
He's the
think,
best player on that
I
team.
don't think
Yeah.
there's any way that he comes back. But I don't want to see another Deontay Davis. That's what I'm scared of.
I
at
think
least.
Miles Bridges played himself out of the lottery too. I mean, I know we're not really going to get into much.
I
of
don't
the
think he
draft.
played himself out of the lottery.
There's a lot of talent this year,
but
Joe.
I definitely think that he didn't help his stock.
No,
That's
not
for
at
sure.
all.
I don't think he's a lottery player to begin with. I think he's a first-round player.
I
but
think his body type though is perfect
Oh,
for
yeah.
the pros. So
His
I
body
think
type is
that's
great.
his lottery.
And the thing with the NBA draft too, it's heavy on youth and age. If you just come back for one more year, it sets you back dramatically.
Well, and if you
those
look,
sophomore players, I mean, their draft stock takes a hit.
and if you look too, the recent draft, they don't take skill players. That's not
Except
the
for
draft.
Stan Van Gundy when Donovan Mitchell is on the
That's-
board.
that's not the
They
draft.
You can't
picked
blame
him.
him for that.
You take
You
young.
can't blame him for that.
I can blame Stan for that.
You
I
take-
said to take Donovan Mitchell.
Nobody
all
knew
day.
Donovan Mitchell was going to be
I
this
knew
good.
Donovan Mitchell.
Come on.
You take young athletic talent. Take Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's a perfect
Yeah.
development player. So you look at
took
that
3
kind
years.
of build, and you slowly build him up, and everybody's like, okay, we can build our own Giannis. And so that's the thing. Like Bridges has going for him is he's a perfect NBA body.
And I think Jaren Jackson has the DJ Wilson thing going for him. DJ got drafted highly. He got drafted, I believe it was a lottery,
Yep.
because he's that stretch 4 type player, which Jaren Jackson is. And Jaren Jackson is a better player than DJ
Yes,
Wilson.
he is.
And big time. And he's a better athlete. So I think that definitely plays a role. The fact that this Spartans team was so overhyped. Cassius Winston definitely came on late in the season.
Yes,
But
he definitely surprised me.
I think Cassius is here for next year.
Oh, yeah.
He's a 4-year point guard.
He's
Yeah.
he's gonna develop over time, and I think in year 3, year 4 is when you're gonna see Cassius really kind of make those strides and maybe help lead this team past the round of 32. And you'll have some solid point guard depth. It's just where will the depth come on the perimeter or in the front line? That's where I'm most interested to see their players that they bring in. But keys to this game, the Spartans out rebounded Syracuse 51-30. You out rebound a team by 21 and you lose? That's almost unheard of in basketball because basketball is usually won on the glass. If you can control the glass, you can control the game. That wasn't the case.
And that's just credit to Syracuse defense. That's how they play. That's what they're going to give up. They're not necessarily the most talented team, but they are all, if you looked at when they showed their roster, they're all 6'5" and above, and they all have wingspans above their height.
Yeah.
So being able to stretch that zone across the whole floor and be able to move as well is really hard to deal with. And I'll give credit too to Syracuse's big man Chukwu, however you pronounce it. He had 4 fouls late in the game, and he stayed in, and he never fouled out, which I thought if Michigan State could have gotten him fouled out, break down the middle of that defense, it might have been a little bit easier.
That's where Ben Carter comes in.
And I don't know if it necessarily changed anything, but it could have been interesting.
No pressure to the rim.
So
I know.
definitely a disappointment for.
Oh yeah, for sure. Any Izzo team, especially one. Yes, it didn't have the most talent Izzo's had, but it had a good amount of talent. And you lose in the round of 32 to a bottom-esque seed. I mean, it has at least a bad taste in your mouth. But to get to Syracuse and Duke now, all that to get to the game, Duke looks really good this tournament.
Duke by at least 20.
I think this is the blowout
Duke
of
by
the
at
Sweet
least 20.
16. Duke looks phenomenal. Grayson Allen's playing out of his mind in the tournament. So is Marvin Bagley. And Bagley looks like he cares. Like usually NBA prospects in the tournament, if they know they're going to leave after the year, they're kind of looking towards their future. Marvin's not. Credit to Coach K getting these guys locked in and game out, because sometimes it doesn't happen. I mean, I remember the Jabari Parker Duke Blue Devils, and they lose in the first round. I mean, Coach K is definitely kind of progressed. I know he leads college basketball in all-time wins. So I mean, to give credit to him, I mean, seems redundant, but I think it needs to be said. He's doing a really good job coaching this team.
And two, they have a 4-year player in Grayson Allen, and I know he gets a lot of flag for his dirty play. I'm not going to take that away from him.
I think his team,
but I think he's a pretty good leader for that team. Actually, I think he cares, and I think he's gotten them locked in as well, at least on the court. Whereas Coach K obviously gets them ready off the court. So I think that tandem there keeps the young guys in line, and they're definitely a dangerous team. I don't know if it'll be a blowout per se.
Blowout.
I think it'll be an easy win. I don't know if it'll be 20, but just because of the way that Syracuse slows teams down, and you're going to be at a slower pace no matter what. So I could see Duke pulling this. I mean, I don't think there's any way that Syracuse wins this game. I mean, I didn't think there was any way they beat Michigan State, but I think Duke is a good enough team that they'll be fine. Marvin Bagley's played really well in this tournament. Wendell Carter, they are very talented big men, more talented than Michigan State's big man even. So that'll be dangerous. And like I said, you have a senior leader in Grayson Allen on the perimeter. So
it's kind of that perfect storm. I mean,
yeah, they should be good. They've looked really good. Like I said, the pace will be slowed down a little bit. So it'll be interesting. Duke's still going to have to hit their shots, but it should be an easy win.
Yeah, Malik, you rocking with the Blue Devils as well?
Oh, yeah. The shooting by Allen and Gary Trent, and then down low, they don't have anybody that can handle Bagley and Carter.
Now,
when you throw it in the middle,
yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do?
Now, do you guys think the 2-3 zone is going to give them any issues? The Blue Devils any issues in this game? Or maybe early
at the
on?
beginning, yeah.
I think it does a little bit. It's going to be kind of the same way as how they play against it. Like if they're going to do the same thing that Michigan State did, they're going to they can put either Marvin Bagley or Wendell Carter in that middle of the zone. So that's really good that they can do either one. And then the other guy can be on that short corner. And one has to dribble drive. And if they draw both the defenders, they just pass it to the other big men. So those big men are going to be very key in this game.
Exactly.
Is how well they work together. And I think Grayson Allen, again, being that senior, he'll know to step up in this game. And I think he'll knock down his shots when he needs to.
Yeah, definitely. That's your bracket update as it stands right now. Next week at this time, as we get going for the next episode of Views from the Sideline, we will have our Final Four set. We'll break down those matchups for you. But I want to kind of switch gears here as we actually have some relevant Detroit Pistons news that doesn't have to do with product on the court, which is nice. We don't have to talk about that because that's atrocious.
I was just hoping we wouldn't have to talk about the Pistons.
I know, but I'm addicted to it, so I got to bring it up at least for the last 10 minutes of the show. But kind of your quick hitter, just to get it out of the way, Pistons sit 31-39 on the year, which is crazy to say after they were 14-6 to start. A 16-game turnaround there. They snapped their 12-game road losing streak to the Kings last night, 106-90.
Wow, they beat the Kings?
I know.
Wow.
But some positives. Blake Griffin looks good. He's shooting the 3-ball better. In his last, I believe it's his last 8, he's shooting 45% from deep, which is nice. I know financially it's a big deal. It doesn't look good for the Pistons, but at least you're getting productivity out of Blake. Maybe the productivity you looked for if you actually surrounded them with talent. Before we get into the news about the Pistons, Joe, is there anything you want to see from these last 15 or 13 or so games from the Pistons to kind of lead you into the 2018-19 season?
Give the young guys a shot. We've been saying it all year to see if these young guys can do something, and we haven't seen them.
Yeah.
We keep talking about it. Me and you. Kennard. We drafted this guy. He's looked good in his limited opportunities. Why is he not playing? Why is he not getting the minutes? Start the man.
And I know Stan gives him a quick hook because of his defense. This team in general plays no defense. So why are we holding the rookies and young guys to such high standard? I can understand Ellenson being buried behind Anthony Tolliver if the Pistons are in a playoff hunt. They're not. They're 6 games behind the 8th place Milwaukee Bucks. You're not turning that around in 13 games.
Nope.
So I don't understand.
Give them a try. We haven't played them all season anyway.
Exactly. See what you got going into the summer. Evaluate your talent then. So now you know if you can cut loose with Henry, move on to something else. Because honestly, if you want to get any relevant NBA caliber talent around Blake and Andre on the perimeter, you're gonna have to move some of your young guys. You might have to move Luke Kennard. Unfortunately, you might have to move. Honestly, if you want to build your best team around Blake, you probably have to move Andre Drummond.
Oh no, I totally agree. I think they have to make something drastic if they want to.
Because you're not getting much for Reggie.
I don't know if they can, but if they really feel like doing something drastic, they're gonna have to, and it's gonna be crazy drastic, like Drummond or Kennard, like you're saying.
And Malik, I want to get your opinion on this. So what's your state of the Pistons? What do you see from this team? What needs to change? Kind of what's your feel for them?
I do agree that Luke Kennard needs to be played a lot more because, like Joey said, in his limited time, he's looked really good. And also, although Henry Ellenson doesn't have the complete package you want from a power forward, he, from what I've seen, he's a solid stretch four.
Yeah,
when he gets to the basket, he can finish.
Yeah.
And I think Andre Drummond needs to be traded.
And Malik not
Andre
pulling
Drummond.
any punches.
I said that in the past. I thought Andre Drummond, I think we should trade him while he's young. He's still got
He's
that.
young,
yes.
and he actually has some value now because
Right.
of how well he's playing. His free
Exactly.
throws have improved. This is probably the highest value you're going to get for Andre on this contract.
And going into this year, or before this year, like last trade deadline, I would have hoped of not this year, but the year prior.
Yeah.
I wish we would have traded Andre Drummond.
For nothing, just to get him out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have held good value still.
So, I mean, he was having a down year, and there's a
but
lot of
the way he's
talk.
played this year, I kind of held back on it a little bit.
Yeah.
But the way the direction that this team is going is not good at all. And I think that it's time to really clean house. We talked about it before. SVG needs to go. Andre Drummond maybe needs to be traded. I love the guy. I think he's great for Detroit as a as a great
ambassador for the Pistons.
Exactly. I think he's great for the team, great for the city.
He's great for the community.
But it's so hard because I think we need to move on from it. It's this kind of whole SVG experiment of the Andre years just not seeming like it's working.
Yeah, definitely. And I think really, honestly, if you're going to build your best team, like I said, if you're going to build your best team around Blake Griffin, which honestly, you kind of have to now because he's just turned 29.
Yeah, they locked him in.
Yeah.
He's locked in for another 4 years after this year at big time money. So you can kind of start a rim running center next to him. I mean, we saw that in the Clippers with DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre probably being the best rim running center along with Clint Capella. But you maybe like a Willie Cauley-Stein or something. I mean, you never know. Kings are crazy, so they might trade a pick in Willie Cauley-Stein. There was an offer on the table, I mean, rumored offer, that the Kings were offering Willie Cauley-Stein and their lottery pick for the Pistons lottery pick and Andre Drummond. That never came to fruition. But that'd be interesting to me this summer. You put Willie, you get an actual pick in the draft.
I would take that trade.
I would take that
a
trade.
lottery pick and
mean,
Willie Cauley-Stein.
I feel like I would try to add another player to it. I don't know necessarily who, but
Buddy Hield.
it would get,
after his last week that he's had, I don't think they'll trade him. Actually,
I
he's
think,
played really well down the stretch.
I mean, Vivek Ranadive loves Buddy. He's like the next step.
But I just wish that there was. I mean, I don't know the money situation and stuff, but I feel like the Kings might have just one other asset that maybe we could try to take off because I don't know. Then it starts to seem like Willie Cauley-Stein and a pick for Andre and a pick. Just I don't know. It seems a little too much, but I know we need to do something. So.
And then
it's hard to say.
I kind of want to transition here to the actual Pistons news. I mean, I kind of had to get my Piston fix in there, but Mark Stein of the New York Times, formerly of ESPN, reported earlier today that Detroit has expressed interest in hiring former Pistons star Chauncey Billups to work in tandem with Arn Tellem in a totally revamped front office. Now, the Pistons beat writers Rod Beard of the Detroit News and Vince Ellis of the Detroit Free Press, they were adamant in saying their NBA sources deny all this. Chauncey came out in a statement and said, of course he'd be interested, but he never wants to kind of get involved in a job has someone in that job, in that position as we speak. He doesn't want to step on someone's toes. I want to throw it to you guys. All rumors aside, this may be false, this may be fake. On the principle of Chauncey Billups coming to the Pistons front office, just on principle, would you be down? Would you be
100%,
good for it?
100%.
I'd love it.
He's my favorite player in Detroit basketball history. I'll be honest. I've always liked him. I hated it when
we traded him.
We traded him away for AI.
But it was AI.
I don't care.
That's what we all thought when we were younger.
He wasn't the AI. I knew he wasn't the AI of old. But Chauncey is a class act, and that's exactly what you saw with him denying all these allegations because he's a good guy. He doesn't want, like you said, he doesn't want to step on anybody's toes. But if the Pistons offered him the job, I feel like he would be interested.
He'd take it in a heartbeat.
He loves Detroit. He knows the culture.
This is his second home.
Exactly. He knows the culture around here. He loves being in the city. He loves going to games. We put his jersey up in the rafters. And I think he knows the game. I think his IQ is unprecedented. And I think that's one of his biggest factors on the court when he played was his IQ is so good. And I think he knows the direction that the game is going. I think he understands the ins and outs of this league right now. And I would really love him to see him in the GM position for Detroit.
Two things here. I think one reason why Chauncey would jump at this is for him to build his legacy in the Detroit community. You win a championship with the going to work crew. You're the guy on the picture holding the trophy. I mean, you encapsulated that Pistons team. And now you build the new regime. and you build a winner back in Detroit with the team actually playing in Detroit and kind of building that new fan base, it'd be huge for his legacy as a all-time Piston on the court and off the court. He does remind me a little bit of a young Joe Dumars.
I was going to say the same thing to play devil's advocate. Do you think that he turns out to be like Joe Dumars by
If
some
he turned out to
chance?
be Joe Dumars, that'd be a successful front office career. Because, yes, I know his ending didn't end well.
I know, I
but
agree.
in the grand scheme of things,
No, I agree.
he drafted well outside of the Darko pick.
I think people take Joe D for granted.
They do.
He gave us some good years, more than people take. You obviously start to think of what's most recent in your mind, and those are the bad years, the downturn. But I think Chauncey would be a very good fit.
I think the Tayshaun Prince pick alone, people don't understand how much Joe Dumars did because nobody really knew who Tayshaun Prince was. And he took a chance on him in the first round. He was good from the start.
And he had second-round picks all the time that were coming to fruition. He had Carlos Delfino.
Yep.
He had Chris Middleton, who was a stud for the Bucks now.
He also drafted Ryan Anderson.
He drafted Ryan Anderson. He has a great eye for talent. And if Chauncey Billups can be anything close to what Joe Dumars was in a span of Joe D's front office career, I mean, that's probably all you can ask for as a Pistons fan. I mean, that means another championship. It does.
We just have to keep those draft picks because all those draft picks went away from the Pistons.
Joe D usually
Carlos Delfino stayed with the team for a while, but
Kurtz.
Most of those guys developed their careers after they left the Pistons.
Fair enough.
But still, yes, the eye for the talent is there.
And Joe D was not one to trade first round picks.
Right.
Even in the Chauncey Billups deal, I believe maybe they traded one, but it was when they were late first round picks. It wasn't like you're trading a lottery pick for an aging Blake Griffin.
And I even feel like Chauncey would be a great ambassador for bringing in free agents. I still don't think Detroit would be like the hot spot for free agents, obviously, because you got LA and stuff. But I think it would give players kind of want to come back to Detroit and say, hey, they're really trying to do something different here.
Players want to play for people that they looked up to.
Right.
I mean, Chauncey Billups, yes, he played into Detroit, a smaller market, but for people in our age group, which is the players that are going to be hitting free agency, they know the Detroit Pistons as that 04 team that knocked off the star-studded Lakers.
Right. And Chauncey knows how big Detroit fans can be and how crucial they are. And I think he can kind of show players coming in, hey, this is no culture to just joke about. Like, these Detroit fans can be ruthless at times, but they can also carry you on their wings.
Yep, definitely. And that's going to do it for our show today. That's Views from the Sideline, episode 11. I want to give a special thank you to Malik Hill coming in the studio, being an honorary guest here. Of course, you can catch him on Turnover Thursdays, airing at 7 a.m. on Thursdays. That's at 88.3 WXOU The Grizz. Thank you, Malik, for joining in on this basketball discussion.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed this. I'll come by anytime.
Appreciate
I love talking.
We'll have you back. We will definitely have Malik back, especially with Final Four coming into town next week. We got a lot of stuff to talk about basketball-wise. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. See ya.
Bye.